started. Welcome to the Fire Hall Theater. I'm Kathy Codell King, and on behalf of the Board of Directors, I'd like to welcome you to Blue Yonder, which is a series of monologues about women and work. Now, their work may not be found in the classified ads. Some of their jobs are more of a life's calling, and they don't really get paid for them. Their passions, there are preoccupations, you might call them, or obsessions, perhaps, that they certainly don't get paid for. There's some very interesting characters. There are ones that are going to make you laugh, and there are ones that are going to make you cry. So you're going to have a whole roller coaster of emotion here. We have 7 women performing 11 different roles. So thank you for coming, celebrating Women's History Month with us. And hopefully we'll see you back on the 31st for the Norwegians, which runs 3 weekends. So Thursday through Sunday. All right? Thank you so much. Good morning, employment. Yes, we have a website that lists our job openings. That is www. Oh, in that case, you can also access our list of available jobs through our recorded job line. That number is 253. No, I can't give you that information. The number is 2. No, that's why we have the recording. The number is... You're welcome. Good morning, employment. Yes, we do have a recorded job line. That number is 253. Oh, a specific job? Yes, I can give you information about a specific job. Which job are you interested in? My job. You want to know how to get this particular job? Oh, I see, you're a people person. Well, why not? Listen closely. You start when you're 9 or 10 years old. You're in the 4th grade, and Mrs. Mack says that everyone has to give a speech about what they want to be when they grow up. It's the day of the speeches, and you are ready. You've practiced for hours in front of your parents' full-length mirror in their bedroom. You've even traced pictures out of the Encyclopedia Britannica to use as visual aids. You know that this is going to be a great speech. First, you listen to Michael Merrill give a speech about how he wants to be a veterinarian. And then Eddie Ackerman talks about being a race car driver and somehow manages to not use any words with more than a single syllable. I am telling you, pay attention, this is important information I'm sharing. You don't think that you can sit still for even one more speech, but it's Sally Cooper's turn, and she gives this brown-nosing speech about how she wants to be a teacher just like Mrs. Mack when she grows up. And the other kids are shaking their heads and smirking behind their hands. But you don't join in, because you know and you are next. And you are going to blow Michael and Sally and certainly the monosyllabic Eddie right out of the water. So it's your turn. You get up in front of the class and you take a deep breath. When I grow up, I want to be a traveler through time. I want to travel through the planets and meet the creatures that live on Mars and Jupiter. I want to have breakfast with the Cro-Magnon children. I want to have lunch with Benjamin Franklin and have dinner with Marie Curie. You'd plan to say Mars and Uranus, but then you realize the folly of saying Uranus to a room full of 4th graders. Anyway, you take a long, meaningful pause right there because you know that this is the best beginning to any speech ever. And you look up, but Mrs. Mack has a worried look on her face, and the kids are laughing at you like they did with Sally Cooper. But you take a deep breath and you go on. You show them your pictures of the first Thanksgiving, of the men who dug the Suez Canal, and of Amelia Earhart. By the end of the speech, all the kids are laughing right out loud at you. And Mrs. Mack isn't doing anything to try to stop them. On your way back to your seat, Bradford Martin sticks his foot out into the aisle, and when you stumble over it, he says, "Look, she took her first trip." And everyone laughs really loud. Do you want to know how to get this job or not? Pay attention. So you've given up on the time traveler idea. It's off to college. You end up as a social work major. It wasn't your first choice, but it makes sense. After all, you are a people person. So you graduate. You have your Bachelor of Arts in Social Work. You're now a certified people person. You start your first job as a social worker. And as it turns out, you're pretty good at it. Although it's only your clients who think so, your supervisor thinks that you have a lot to learn. You stay up until midnight holding the hand of a pregnant 14-year-old, only to later get in trouble for it because now other clients, other people, might think that you're available to them after normal business hours. It's a dangerous precedent and one that cannot be condoned. Your supervisor is also dubious about your future because you've been known to practice social work while wearing jeans. Apparently, denim and compassion can't coexist. So you stay on for a few years, and then you move on. Because you know if you don't move on, you're going to be asked to leave because of your wardrobe and the annoying way in which your clients seem to know and like you. And you know that you're going to miss your clients, and you're grateful for everything that they've taught you. But you're on thin ice with the administration. So you move on to another job, a social worker again this time. Because after all, you are still a people person. And this one works out rather well. You get along with your supervisor, and she sometimes even wears jeans to work. And you start to become friends, and you get closer and closer, and she likes your work, and you start to feel good about life and yourself, and hey! I can hear you turning pages. Put the magazine down. After a little while, your supervisor, who is by now also your friend, says, I think that if I weren't married, we would have become lovers a long time ago. And you don't know what to say to that, because there are times you thought that she might have been flirting with you, but she's married, so you always assume that what you thought was flirting was simply collegiality. A few weeks later in the bathroom, she gives you the tiniest of kisses. And you enjoy it, but you mention she's married and you're seeing someone new, and all of this is making you really uncomfortable. She tries to persuade you, but you hold your ground. A week later, she calls you into her office and says they're not very happy with your work, and you'll be given the option of resigning or being fired. But by the way, she'd still like to be friends. And you don't know what to do. You panic. You think resigning is better than being fired, so you quit. But you feel like you've been hit by a rather large, fast-moving truck. You hurt all over. And you don't know what to do. So you simply don't do anything. You look around for another job. Jobs where you don't have to put your heart right there on your desk every day next to your stapler and your date stamp. And that's how you find this one. You spend your day listening to people tell you that they need to find themselves, that if they could just find the right job, they know that they would be the person they dream of being. And you know that a new job won't help at all. But you smile and you take their application and you record the score from their typing test. But even though you're smiling, you don't let yourself care about them. They'll either get the job or they won't. It's none of your business, none of your concern. You decide to be a people person after 5 o'clock. You laugh and smile and talk and have friends, just not during work hours. So you're not actively seeking employment. You're not looking for another job. You think, this isn't so bad. I could do this for another 20, 30 years, the rest of my life. But every once in a while, when the new job listings come out, you can't help but take a little peek just to see if there might be something listed under the heading Time Traveler. but there never is. And that is how you get a job like mine. Now, is there anything else I can help you with?
Good morning, Mr. Haynes. You're up and at 'em bright and early this morning. You have a nice day now, you hear? 32 years. Same doorway, different door. Replaced that 5 or 6 times in 30 years. Replaced the tile 2 times. Repainted the foyer, oh geez, repainted the foyer at least a dozen times. It's been mostly this same off-white color. One time it was snow white, and that didn't last very long. Scuff marks and fingerprints, you can imagine. Twice we painted it mint green, and I'll tell you, I was glad to see that color go both times, huh? You folks button up now, you hear? That wind's getting fierce out there. 70. Well, I know you're wondering. Everybody does. I'm obviously not some college girl anymore. I'll be 70 in May. Hey, the 27th, yes. Taurus the bull, don't mess with me. Oh, I'm just kidding, don't wet yourself, huh? Oh, yep, I'm here every morning. Oh, excuse me. Mrs. Fields, welcome home. How was Spain? Yeah, you look so rested. It's nice to have you back. I'll send your bags right up, okay? She sent me postcards from a trip. Yeah. Oh, I get them from all over. Portugal, Spain, Japan, London, Phoenix, you know. Everyone seems to think that I just need to know what's going on in their lives every second. And sometimes, you know, they bring me gifts too, which is very generous, but how many of those little straw baskets from the Bahamas does one woman need, huh? Mrs. Berkowitz. Well, we haven't seen you out and about for a long time. You have a great day. Well, the funny thing is that they have no notion of where I've been. You know, I've been all over the Belgian Congo, Thailand, only it was called Siam in those days. Sailed around Cape Horn, rode a train through Russia. I even took a walk on the Great Wall of China once. The nice thing about having parents as missionaries, you know. Join the church and see the world. Oh, only I don't tell them where I've been. I just thank them for the refrigerator magnets cut out in the shape of Italy or the seashell nightlights from Maui. They don't want to know where I've been, so I don't tell them. And now, before you even ask, I don't think it makes one lick of difference that I'm a woman. I don't think it takes a man to open a door. You know, if it did, women would never get anywhere. We'd just sit inside all day waiting for the man to come open the door, am I right? So I'm a doorman. Big deal, big whoopee, as my granddaughter always says. Big old whoopee. Although, sometimes a tourist will catch sight of me and they'll come and ask me to take a picture with them or with their Aunt Fanny or whatever. You know, when I do it, but it kind of irks me, you know, makes me feel like Minnie Mouse at Disneyland or the bearded lady at the circus. You know, there's just something about an old lady all done up in a doorman's uniform and people think it's so cute. And I'll tell you one thing, old is not cute, it's just old. One time a lady called me spunky, and I really hated that. Sounds like something you'd call a little pug dog or something. So I looked at her and I said, hey you, I might be small, but so is a firecracker. You know, and it sounded good at the time, but I think I just proved a point. I didn't take the job to be on display, I took the job to have a job, you know? My husband worked, I worked, and the only difference is I'm still working, you know, he retired, but I'm just not ready yet, you know? But a job is a job is a job. Sometimes you stand, sometimes you sit, but a job is a job is a job. And this woman thing, women can be in the police, women drive the buses, so why can't a woman open the door? You know, okay, so sometimes there's challenges. You know, like if a drunk falls asleep in your entry and you gotta boot him out in the morning, or one time, a guy died right out here, and it took the city 3 hours to come and clean him up. Oh, you think that didn't cause a problem? Didn't make the people in my building a little edgy. Okay, take it as it comes, you know? Good morning, Dr. Edwards. Hey, you're right, it's gonna be another cold one. Say, I wanted to thank you for that nice wooden tray you brought me from the Philippines. Real monkey pod. Huh. Well, that certainly is special. Or you have a nice day, and I'll see you when you get home, okay? Yes, sir. I'll be right here when you get home.
You know, please, I'm begging you, sing a song, yes, a travel song, when you gotta go somewhere.
When I was born, my family called me the miracle baby, and my picture was in the New York Times. I guess you could say that I was famous. See, my big sister Lisa was sick, dying with leukemia. The only thing that would save her was a bone marrow transplant, but they needed an exact donor. The closest donors are brothers and sisters. Did you know that? Lots of people don't know that. So when I was about a year old, they took out my bone marrow from right here in my hip. You can still see the little mark. And they gave it to Lisa, and she got well. Now she's married and has a little baby in a real nice house. I was even her maid of honor. A lot of people got mad at my parents. They wrote nasty letters to the newspapers and called up the TV stations. Said my mom and dad only had me to save Lisa's life. That it wasn't fair because I couldn't give my approval for them to take out my bone marrow, but she's my sister, you know? Of course I'd want her to live. Besides, I don't even remember it anyway, so it couldn't have hurt that bad, could it? I mean, if something hurts you that bad, wouldn't you remember it? When I was about 15, my grandpa needed a new kidney. His just weren't working right, and they said he was poisoning himself from the inside. So I gave him one of mine. You only need one kidney anyway. Did you know that? You only need one kidney, but you can't spare any grandparents. That's what my family said. Then last year, my dad got sick. There was something wrong with his lungs. I forget what it's called exactly, but it was pretty bad. So they asked me would I mind, you know, giving up part of my lung for my dad, and I said no, I wouldn't mind. Not for my dad. Of course I wouldn't mind. Got a big scar from that one. Goes from here, clear over to here. And sometimes I still can't sleep very well from the nerve spasms I get. He ended up dying anyway. There was some other stuff too. A skin graft for my cousin. A teeny slice off the top of my liver for my sister's little baby. A couple inches of vein from my leg for my grandma. People don't understand why I do it, but it's my family, you know. If they need a little piece of me to keep them going, I'll give it to them. I can't tell them no for counting on me, can I? Sometimes in my room at night, I take off my clothes and I look at myself in the mirror on the back of the door. I touch all the scars, take an inventory of my parts. I don't know what will be next. It's hard to say. I think maybe this is my calling, you know. We're taught that everyone is here for a purpose, and I think this must be mine. I mean, it has to be. Because when I was born, my family called me the miracle baby, and my picture was in the New York Times.
There's an awful lot to be said for finding everything you need all in one place. Well, that's exactly what Woolworths is. Having all your heart's desire met in one shopping trip. And I'd always see folks come out on the lunch hour, grab themselves a turkey, dress in hot plate, and bring it to the counter. Some arthritis medicine for the mother-in-law, some toy and smother for the kids, and spools of thread, all in the same hour. Not many places you know can do that. And I always did like to look at the people's shopping carts, just seeing what they wanted. We got a dental floss, Phillips head screwdriver, Cadbury milk chocolate bar, birthday card, and a framed picture of some sort of football player. And then I tried to make them a game to think about what they were fixing to do with all these things. Maybe they're making dinner for someone special, and it's that special person's birthday. That would explain the card. Maybe even the framed picture. If that special person was a man, I don't think it would be something a woman would enjoy as a gift. Or they could have one on the wallpaper that they want to cover up. Or they could have a spot where somebody hauled off and stuck a fist right through the wall, and they want to cover up a bad spot up with this picture. Well, the screwdriver, that's a tiny cool one leg on the table. The milk chocolate bar. That is what they're planning on serving for dessert. Probably cut up into small slices. The dental floss. The dental floss is because when you're making dinner for someone special, you don't want to have tuna casserole caught between your teeth. And I play the same game when I'm at the grocery store, except it's hotter. Not as much variety. Why, just yesterday, I was over at Food City right behind a woman in line with nothing in the cart but 8 gallons of milk and a watermelon. Not much you could say out of that. Except they sure do like their milk, I guess. Yep, been here 33 years now. Sounds like a long time. It goes by fast though. Spent my first 7 years over there at the candy counter, serving up caramel turtles and chocolate covered peanuts. That was my first job. And my dad, he was so proud of me. He used to say that Woolworths was a solid company, and if I put in an honest day's work, then the store would treat me right. But sometimes, in those first couple of years, I would look up from the candy counter and see my dad standing outside on the sidewalk, holding that flat straw hat of his in his hands, just watching me work and smiling. Well, next I got promoted to Notions. I did not miss the candy counter. That sweet chocolatey smell can get right up your nose and stay there. It makes you feel a little sick. I didn't mind moving to Notions. Probably not many stores have themselves a Notions department anymore. Probably 90% of your people couldn't even tell you what Notions means. I'll tell ya. It was threads. Pins, zippers, buttons, that sort of thing. Also, padded hangers for ladies' clothing, little sachet packs for your dresser drawer, chew ties, that sort of thing. And I didn't mind Notions. I liked it. It just wasn't really that interesting. Hard to get worked up over a bobbin and a dress shield. So, I was glad to move on. Well, next, I was assistant manager of the stationery department. And I thought it'd be easy, just dealing with cards and pens and the like. It turned out to be a nightmare. People dig through those brother cards just looking for just the right one, and they never put them back in the same place. Worse is when they try to read the cards without pulling it out of the slots, and they bend the corners down. Nobody's gonna buy them then. And I have to tell you, I like people, I really do. But sometimes you gotta wonder, what on earth are they thinking about? Oh, and the fall. I don't even like to think about the fall. School supplies. Just hearing those two words makes me want to break them in halves. Why, you got two mothers fighting over there for the same knapsack. You got a kid crying because he wants a pen that writes in green ink. Or all the lunchboxes we have left have Superman on them. And he wants a lunchbox with anyone on it except Superman. But still, even when I was working in stationaries, even then, I love coming to work. Once in the morning, everything's all nice and orderly. Things would get pretty picked over by the end of the day. But the evening staff folk would always stay around and help get things shipshape again. And I used to just walk up and down the aisles, just marveling at what we had there, and how nice it looked before we unlocked the doors. Nail polish sorted out by color, peach ice, flamingo pink, big apple red, candy bars, Big Ruth, Butterfinger, and Cherry Mash, each in its own little wide bin. Had scarves that folded up nice and neat, aspirin bottles turned around so that with a label faces front, fish food shelves restocked, can openers, underpants, artificial flowers, paperback books, vacuum cleaner bags, mouthwash, keychains, spice racks, and hair curlers. Everything in its place. And people ask me, did I shop here myself? Well, of course. No better shopman if you ask me. And I have been to plenty of those malls, so I do know what I'm talking about. Those places are just like a big circus. Some even got carnival rides right inside them, exactly like a circus. But Woolworths always offered you everything you needed. Never more. Those big places just like to tease you with stuff you don't even need, and you don't even want. Guess I spent a fair amount of my paychecks right here in the store. Oh, they have these cookies. Oh, here's 10. They're imported from Denmark, and they're real buttery tasting and not too hard. I probably had one of these cookies on every single break I took for the last 30-some years. They come in a big tin like this with flags rolled all around them. Never really got tired of them. Always kept the tin right over there in my locker. And that is how I got my nickname. It was due to all those cookies. Well, besides the cookies, I sure do like the foot powder that we sell. It's a special Woolworths brand, and you'll find it right over there by the Dr. Scholl's products. As many hours as I spend on my feet, I do have to take good care of them. Why, I hear them interviewing one of those gals who runs the marathons, talking how she has to take very good care of her feet, because without them, she's nothing. Well, same things here. I spend the best part of 8 hours and 6 days a week up on my feet. Sometimes all 7 if somebody calls in sick. So I have to take mighty good care of my feet. And every morning, I take some of this here foot powder and I sprinkle it in my shoes. And then into my hands. And I have to rub it all over. Rub it in good. It's Medicaid. It's so it helps my feet from hurting. Sometimes they still get sore, but not as bad as without the powder. Probably the medicine in it that makes all the difference. And there's just some things you just expect will always be there. You turn on the faucet, you expect to see water come out. You visit the Grand Canyon, you assume nobody's filled it in with dirt since your last trip. That it's always going to be there. That's what I figured about the Wool Wars. Been here since I was a little girl. Been here forever. But every now and then I guess you get surprised. I don't know, maybe somebody better go check out the Grand Canyon just to make sure it's still there. When the sale started, I bought myself a dozen tins of those butter cookies and 7 plastic shaving things with the foot powder in them. I would have bought more, but that was all we had left. I've been looking around, filling out some applications. It's funny when they call me or when it's my turn to go in for an interview. They always call me Evelyn, on account of that is what I put in my form, because it is my real name and all. But still, it takes me a minute, on account of I got called Cookie for so many years. But then I remember, and I think, oh yeah, that's me. I'm Evelyn. Like I said, I've been trying for applications at other stores, and it's funny when those placement people see you and they see 30 odd years of retail on your application. Well, you can bet your booties that you're going to lots of stores for lots of interviews. And do you know what they did? They tried to send me to one at the Gap. I don't know what got into them to send me there. Everyone who works there is my niece's age. So what I did is I just handed back my application and walked out of the store. Little girl, who was the manager, she seemed real relieved. Well, next, they sent me to that Walmart, and man asked me what I think of the store. And I said, I can tell you to try it. But you're no Wool Wars. And, well, that was the end of that interview. The thing is, you can find your heart's desire at a place like Wool Wars, but finding something doesn't mean it's yours forever. Still, it's real good while it lasts.
Here's what's gonna happen. We start with the 4 basics. And if you don't know them now, you damn well sure will when we get finished. Climbs, descents, turns, straight level flying. Got it? From there, we'll move on to slow flight and stalls. Listen up now. Stall doesn't mean your engine died. A stall in an airplane is not the same thing as stalling your car. We'll come back to that. I'll be your flight instructor. I've been at this for 15 years now, so you're in good hands. Flown every kind of aircraft there is. Copters, gliders, military planes, flown them all. Never met an aircraft I didn't like, and that didn't like me. Still got a few more I'd like to fly someday. Now, let's get one thing straight, because I know you're going to ask. Happens every time. But if one more person asks me about Amelia freaking Earhart, I am going to puke. She married rich, had good PR, and got herself lost. End of story. hiring a drunk for a navigator probably didn't help matters much either. There were lots of women who flew before Amelia Earhart and a whole bundle of them who flew after her. You just keep that in mind. I always wanted to fly, and Amelia Earhart didn't have anything to do with it. It's all I wanted when I was a kid. Probably the same for you, huh? One time, I dreamed that I won this big contest, and the prize was a trip to Florida. They came right to the school to pick me up, parked their plane. It was a Lockheed Constellation. Parked their plane right there in the school parking lot. I got to climb up into that big old Connie and sit up on the deck with the pilot. The other kids were waving and yelling. I was surprised how clear I could see from up there. Funny thing is, when I got up in the airplane to solo for the first time, and this was years later, when I got up there, the world looked exactly like it had in my dream. So, what we'll do is this. I'll talk you through our pre-flight, make sure everything is ready to roll. We'll check the fuel, the oil, run a finger along the edge of the prop to make sure there aren't any nicks. You can't take too much time doing this. Bolts, cotter pins, fasteners, movable surfaces, the whole 9 yards. It takes some time, but it's absolutely necessary. Miss one little thing, and you end up buying the farm. That means dying, if you don't already know it. Flying is like anything else. We've got our own language. Hell, there's a whole bunch of ways just to say somebody croaked. Fly west, auger in, punch a hole. Doesn't matter how you say it though. Dead is dead. Anywho, if you've done your homework, you know all about lift and thrust and drag. You better know about them anyway. You know that lift is what keeps an airplane up. It's all about the air pressure flowing over and under the wing. You create that upward force and there you go. You're up in the air. You're flying. Climbing high into the sun. When we were kids, we used to try to get my Uncle Bill to sing the Air Force song. He was a radio man in a flying fortress in World War II. He'd throw his head back and shut his eyes and belt out that song for all he was worth. I used to love to watch him sing it. Gave me goosebumps every time. But you're not here to listen to stories about my relatives, are you? You're here to learn how to fly. About the lessons, what I like to do is see people 2 or 3 times a week. Then we can work your ground school in on days when it's not fit to fly. To be honest with you, we're going to have to play that by ear. I'm supposed to start some treatments, medical procedures. Not sure how they're going to affect me, but I'm planning to be here every day that I can. Lost the left one 2 years ago, and I was back flying again in no time at all. Flying is the only thing that got me through, knowing that when it was all over, I could get off the ground again. Now they say it's shown up again. Doesn't look so good, but I'll do what needs to be done so that I can be back here. I'm not the type to sit around in my nightgown feeling sorry for myself. I'd rather be flying than dying. That's my motto. Jesus, Mary and Joseph, I got myself right off the track. What the hell were we talking about before? Ah, lift. So, suppose you're climbing and the angle of your wing is increasing, you know, like this. Pretty soon air can't flow over the wing and your lift is just shot to hell. You gotta make some corrections, add power, lower the nose, or you'll be in some deep, deep doo. First time you experience a stall, I guarantee you'll rate a full 10 points on the pucker factor scale. Just you wait and see. Like I said before, a stall doesn't have anything to do with engine failure. You can stall when you're at full power. Important thing is not to panic, to do what's necessary to get the air to flow over the wing again, and to keep on flying. That's all that counts. You've just got to keep on flying.
I follow people.
it's what I do. I don't mean I follow them down the sidewalk a block or two until they go to Walgreens and buy shampoo or spearmint gum. Not like some lost little puppy or something pathetic. I mean, I really follow them for days, sometimes even weeks at a time. I'm serious about this. Sometimes I'll call into the bank and say, I have the stomach flu or an allergic reaction, just so I can follow one of my people. I mean, you can't quit following someone just because you have to go to work. Following is my work, my career. You could even say my vocation. And I'm good at it too. Like this guy I've been following lately, C. Walters. I'm not sure what the C stands for. It's just what I read when I was going through his mail. It could be Charles. He could be a Charles. It's not Chuck. He's definitely not a Chuck, though. But it could be Charles. Anyways, it doesn't matter. So I called him Clifton. He could be a Clifton. I had an uncle named Clifton once. Anyways, I started on following Clifton one day last week. Tuesday. No, Wednesday. Wednesday last. I always like saying it like that. Wednesday last instead of last Wednesday. It sounds sophisticated. Like something Katharine Hepburn would say in one of her movies. Wednesday last. Anyways, so I started in on following Clifton Wednesday last when he was coming out of McDonald's. And he was drinking his coffee through a straw. Hot coffee through a straw. It could melt the plastic, and then you have melted plastic going through your blood system and all your vital organs like your liver. I'm sure it would kill you. But that's when I knew I had to start following him. Now, you can't follow just anyone. Some people just take off after the first person they see, and that's just not the way it's done. You have to be careful. Selective. Like Rosemary. Some other month ago, I was waiting at the bus stop when these two women got off. One of them was dressed real fancy, like she was going to a funeral or a birthday party. She was wearing this sky blue dress with a white collar and a big white bow right on the front. Sky blue. I always like that color. It relaxes you, you know. It's scientifically proven. You see a color like sky blue or dusty rose and you feel all calm and relaxed and comfortable. But then you see a color like red or the orange of the traffic cones when they're fixing the streets and everyone gets all agitated and angry. Anyway, so Rosemary. In this particular instance, I knew her name because when she was getting off the bus, her friend, who was wearing red and making me feel anxious, said, "See you later, Rosemary." It was that easy. I didn't even have to go through her mail. So Rosemary said goodbye to her friend, the lady in red who was making me feel very uncomfortable at this point, and took off down the street. So I followed her, figuring she's going to some special event somewhere. She went about a block or two and sat down on one of those benches that you wait for the bus on. It was yellow, and it had an advertisement for a mausoleum painted on it. So she sat down and she took out a book from the straw bag she was carrying. I'm not sure what it was. Some big, thick book. Definitely not a paperback. And she started to read. So I figured, okay, she's waiting for a bus. But the thing is, I walked back and forth watching her for 3 hours. And that's all she did. She sat on the bench, all dressed up, reading her book. Then she went back down the street, met up with her friend, the lady in red again, and got on the next bus. I watched her for 3 damn days, and all she did was sit on the bench, all dressed up, reading her book. I stopped following her soon after that. I mean, what's the point? You can't follow someone if they're not going anywhere.
It's not the flame that burns you, it's the heat. A simple party trick proves this. You light a candle, and the flame can't hurt you. But if you hold your hand there a little longer, and it'll begin to redden and sting. If you hold it there longer, the skin bubbles and blisters. The pain is intense, unlike anything you've known, unlike anything you thought possible. If you could stand to keep your hand there long enough, the skin would char, the nerve endings would be destroyed, and the pain would end. For good. Stay in one place long enough, and you'll burn. You can walk into the fire, but you need to learn to move through it. You find that it's not as hard as it seems. You learn that you can take anything for a moment. You face the fire. You welcome it. You understand what it can do, and then you get out. It's when you stay too long, when you linger, that you'll get hurt. Part of you that burns will never return, and you'll be left with more scars and less feeling than you had before. The only way to avoid this is to keep moving. For the flame surrounds you and the fire walls you in, for the heat cooks your flesh and makes your blood simmer, for the fire takes away sensation and the smoke takes away your breath, you must keep moving. You must remember that it's not the flame that burns you. It's never just the blaze itself. It's the heat.
I'm here by 8 a.m. every morning, Monday through Saturday. Rain, shine, sleet, snow. I came here the morning of my oral surgery. I came here when my mama was dying of bone cancer. I even came here on the day of my sister's wedding. I don't know what it would take to keep me away. I do this because I care about our young people, most particularly our young ladies. I do this because I'm a mother myself, but mostly I do it because it is God's will. The innocent and the righteous lay there not, for I will not acquit the guilty. J-A-H-146. Bree's husband works in motor vehicles. We give him these plate numbers and he gives us a name and an address. We write to the people who've been here and send along some literature and ask them to reconsider their decision. Or, if they've already been persuaded to have their child killed, we ask them to pray to the Lord for forgiveness and we offer them counseling. Of course, Dr. Mead is a gynecologist, so sometimes women are just here for their yearly exams, and every now and then it's someone who's had a miscarriage, but I understand that seeing the pictures might cause those women some pain and anguish, and for that I'm truly sorry, but we must continue to fight the good fight. Proverbs says that there are 7 things that are an abomination to God, and one of those is hands that shed innocent blood. How could I not use any means possible to destroy something that's an abomination to God, even if it does cause a little bit of pain and suffering now and again? All of us in our group are in agreement about that. There's several of us who are regulars here. Bree, Mildred, Connie, Sister Bonaventure, Mrs. Moore. Over the years, we've gotten to be just like a little family. There's not much about one another that we don't know. Our bond grows deeper every time we turn away a young lady from the doors of that killing center. I think of it as saving another little lamb for Jesus. On Sundays, we get the whole group together and we have a prayer meeting out at Dr. Mead's house. He lives on over in the Heights. It's a real nice area. First, we go into the neighborhood and we pass out leaflets. Do you want this man for a neighbor? That's what it says on the cover. On the inside, it talks about how many babies he kills in a year. How women are sometimes coerced into having abortion. The victims are encouraged to lie or threaten suicide just so they won't have to be bothered with being pregnant. After all the leaflets are passed out, we stand on the curb right in front of Dr. Mead's house, where we pray. or we sing. Oh, I don't do this because I have hate in my heart for Dr. Mead. I do this because I hate what he does, and I will go there every Sunday until he stops. On Sunday afternoons, Gary comes with me. The others, they bring their families too. It's become kind of like a ritual for us now. Sunday school, dinner out, and prayer at Dr. Mead's house. I do enjoy it when Gary can be there. Besides, you never know what to expect. We've had garden hoses turned on us and garbage thrown out of cars. I just feel safer when he's there. He comes by here some days when he can, but he works real hard to support us so that I can spend my time doing the Lord's work. When he can come, I sure appreciate it. God's army needs many soldiers, and we appreciate all the support we can get. Or at least we try to be appreciative. I'll admit sometimes I get irritated when people come in here and try to tell us what we should be doing. I've been doing this for years now. I know exactly what I'm doing. And I know it's not right to say, but I get especially bothered when the person coming in here acting like they own the place and telling us what we should and should not be doing is a woman without children of her own. I know that there are women who are not able to conceive, but many of them have just decided not to give birth because having a child would interfere with their life or their job. Every time one of them comes in here, every time that happens, I want to say, when you know what it's like to have a little life squirming around in your belly, when you know what it's like to spend hours in excruciating pain, and when you know what it's like to be spread-eagled in some delivery room with a bunch of strangers staring at your hoo-hoo, then you can and cannot tell me how I should be running things here. There are days. Your baby is God's creation, for thou didst form my inward parts. Thou didst knit me together in my mother's womb. There are days when my throat gets sore and my feet swell up from standing. But for the most part, it's not difficult to stay motivated. I have seen photographs of whole dumpsters full of murdered babies. I will not call them fetuses. That's just a fancy word to make you forget what they are. They are babies, plain and simple, and they deserve to have a life. Sometimes, during our sidewalk counseling, we show pictures, actual photographs of preborn babies that have perished in the abortion mills, and we show the pictures to the women who've come here. We show them the pictures and we share the facts. We tell them about women who have abortions and how they suffer from anxiety and guilt and worse things, suicidal impulses and drug abuse. It's called post-abortion syndrome, and it's a medically proven fact. Sometimes when we're doing our sidewalk counseling, Bree will give them a model of an unborn baby that they can hold in their little hands. You can see its little fingers and its toes, even its eyelashes. A lot of them change their mind right then and there. There are thousands of babies alive today because of sidewalk counselors. I consider myself a preborn baby's last line of defense from the Holocaust. A lot of feminists don't like what we're doing here. They say it's about a woman's right to choose what happens to her own body, but does she have the right to choose what happens to her baby's body? No, only the Lord in heaven should make that choice. Those feminists, they come here quoting Emma Goldman and Gloria Steinem and people like that. Why? One of their greatest heroes, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, once said how disgraceful it was that women see their children as property to be disposed of. But you don't see them coming in here quoting her, now do you? No, they pick and choose the words they use to support their stand. Every now and again, somebody, usually a reporter, will ask me if I think it's right to kill the doctors who perform the executions. I do not think that killing is right ever, under normal circumstances. But this is not normal circumstances. This is mass murder. And Genesis is quite clear on the subject of murder. For whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. By man. I could not do it myself, mind you. I don't have it in me to take a life. Gary says there's not a cruel bone in my entire body. You don't have the right to do wrong. I just think that I'm needed here to keep waging the war on the front lines and not in some prison. God has made that abundantly clear to me. Yesterday, I did mention it to Gary. I said, I believe that this someone needs to step forward. He said he would consider it, but he wasn't sure he wanted to make that kind of sacrifice. Gary, I said, what's a personal sacrifice if it saves even one more little lamb for Jesus? It's not like I wouldn't have to sacrifice too. I told him that. I told him I would surely hate to make do without you. Although, I do like the idea of being married to a true Christian hero. But in the meantime, I'll be here, rain, shine, sleet, snow, restraining order or not, day after day, week after week, until the killing stops. And the Lord will be right here beside me, right here. JJY 227.
Putting on your uniform is like a ritual, like a religious act. You have to do it a special way, in the same way each time. Ladies baseball, we're calling it. The all-girls team. Other teams listed us on their schedules like that, like some sort of exhibition or novelty act. Or like in that movie with Madonna, where the players wear little skirts or do the splits going after a fly ball. That's what they seem to expect. They're disappointed when we show up looking like every other team in the league. Reporters talk to us and they treat us like clowns or some kind of freaks of nature. One of them asked Marcy, our right fielder, if she likes boys or not. He actually said that. Turned his little tape recorder off and said, "Between me and you, Marcy, what's the deal? Do you like boys or not?" And Marcy looked right at him and said, "No, I do not like boys." This reporter guy leaned back against the locker, like he had just gotten the scoop of the century. And then Marcy reached over and grabbed Jimmy Olsen right by the balls. Seriously, she grabbed him right by the nuts, real hard. And then she looked at him and said, "No, I do not like boys. I like men. Let me know if you run into any." And she must have given him a squeeze or something, because he let out this little tiny "oh" sound, and then Marcy just walked away. Jesus. I grew up playing softball. You know, in the girls' softball league where they give you pastel-colored jerseys and they encourage you not to play too rough or someone could get hurt, and you get fed that "we're all winners" crap. Our batting helmets had flowers on them, honest to God. It wasn't long before I figured out that I could hit the ball harder, throw longer, and run faster than any of the other little girls on the team. Playing ball is clearly what I did best. Some of the parents complained that I was too good,
and that I was ruining the game for their daughters. But none of the girls on the team said this, of course. We went along with the grown-ups with the there are no winners or losers stuff. But secretly, we talked about pulverizing the other team, about how we wanted to hurt them, crush them. We tried to put spells on their batters, and one time my teammates gave me $1 apiece to hit the other team's pitcher with a line drive. I made $17. Played softball in high school, got a scholarship to college, and sometime into my junior year I started to notice how all the guys on the team were talking about where they wanted to play and which minor league teams got the biggest crowds and what kind of contracts they'll try to negotiate. And I start thinking to myself, Jesus, these guys are going to get to be able to keep playing, and what do I have ahead of me? An 8-to-5 job in a softball league where I'll be on the same team with a bunch of out-of-shape old PE majors who only want to get the game over with so they can go drink beer, back to playing for fun, and we're all winners here. When I heard they wanted to start a women's team, I was all over it. Came to tryouts, made the team, and now I'm doing what I want to do. Everybody's all for you finding a job where you get to do what you do best. Well, I found that job. Took some adjustments going from softball to baseball, but I used to work out with the guys on the baseball team in college, so it came pretty easily to me. We lost our first game, 19-0. And a lot of people thought that meant we shouldn't be playing. But that very same night, the Angels lost 14-0 to the A's. And I didn't hear anyone saying how they should pack it in, give it up, get real jobs. The important thing is, I guess, it's not some women's thing for me. I'm not out to prove a point, demand my rights, none of that. I just want to play. It's what I do. After every game, there's a whole crowd of kids who wait to get autographs. Boys and girls, all ages. And I like it. Because they look at me and they see me for exactly what I am. A ball player. That's all I really want. I just want to play the game.
I wouldn't have missed this day for the world. I was telling Clifford the other day that there are just some things, some days, when you have to be there for your child. You know, like their first day of school and their first date, graduation, days you wouldn't miss for all the tea in China. Days you have to be there for your little girl, even when she's not so little anymore. On her last birthday, Candace turned 28, and that didn't mean that she was too old for me to throw her a party. And we threw it. We rented out the Elks Lodge, and we hired a DJ, and we just danced all night. People danced until 3 a.m. We had such a good time. You know, folks still talk about that party. And Candace, she had the time of her life, just laughing and dancing and carrying on. She made me so happy to be her mother. Sometimes things don't work out exactly as you plan, you know, and that's just part of being a parent. When Candace was 18, she came home. And she had this big tattoo on her shoulder blade, right there, a peace sign, with flowers wound all around it. And I looked at her and I said, Candace, this is the 80s. The hippies are all dead and gone. But she thought it was so cool. And her best friend Judy had gotten a matching one on her fanny. Now, I have to admit that the colors were very pretty. And I was glad she didn't get on her behind because, frankly, that just has always seemed so cheap to me, you know? But I looked at her and I said, Candace, what are your grandchildren gonna think about having a grandma with a tattoo? What are they gonna think about a Nana with a peace sign on her shoulder? And she didn't really have an answer for that one, but of course, the way things turned out, 10 more minutes. You know, I was so glad to hear that they have the gas chamber here, because lethal injection, what is that even? You know, it's just like going to sleep, is what I hear. And sure, it stops your brain, and it stops your lungs, but you're already out of it, so what difference does it make? The reason that I like the gas chamber is because it's supposed to be very, very painful. You know, you try to breathe, but it hurts. And you know, your body knows that if you just took even 2 big deep breaths, it would make it go faster, but your lungs know that it hurts to breathe and they don't want any part of that, and it's supposed to take a long time. I read somewhere that the longest one took 11 minutes, and that was some sort of record. I mean, normally it takes 4 minutes or 5, but I can imagine that that would be long enough that you might remember how it was you got yourself here. And that's exactly what I want him to do. I want him to remember when they're strapping him down to that chair. I want him to remember how it was that he chose her. Out of all of the girls in the whole world that it could have been, how he chose her. She was just an ordinary girl. Well, except to me, of course. I thought she was beautiful. I told her that all the time. I said, Candace, you are my beautiful girl. And she said, well, you only say that because you're my mother. I want him to remember how she fought, how she clawed at his face and she peeled off his skin. And I want him to remember that when he hears those pellets hit the pan of acid and he starts to smell that rotten egg smell. And I do hope that we can see him, because I want him to look into my eyes, and I want him to see Candace's face in my face, because people said that she was the spitting image of me. And I want him to look at me, and I want him to take the look on my face straight to hell with him. Like I said, there are just some moments in life that you have to be there. Some occasions that you have to be there for your child.
The human skin is comprised of 2 layers. You You got the lower layer, that's the dermis. That houses blood vessels, sweat glands, nerve endings, and hair follicles. And then the outer layer, that's the epidermis. That's home to a bunch of dead cells which are constantly being sloughed off. These dead cells cover a living layer of epithelial cells. As these cells complete their short life cycle, where the living ones push the dead ones to the surface, where they are nonchalantly cast off. We are covered in 20 square feet of skin. Why? The skin is the largest organ in the human body. Not the brain, not the lungs, not the intestine. The skin. It provides a barrier from harmful bacteria, cushions and protects the tissues and organs, heats us and keeps us cool, gives us our shape, protects us from the sun's rays. And the skin of the adolescent erupts in angry pustules and pimples. In middle age, the skin loosens and we sag in unexpected and unwanted places. And the skin grows wrinkled and must be covered with lotions and creams, and tugged and pulled and pinched back into smoothness. Yet, for all its seeming disloyalty, the skin serves as a protector. It keeps the rain out and the warmth in, provides a barrier from pollutions and poisons and toxins of everyday life from invading our bodies. 2 millimeters are all that stand between our tissues and organs and the world, between us and them, between you and me. The skin also harbors the sensation of touch. Touch is one of the first senses to develop in a newborn infant. It is one of the final senses to fade as we approach death. Touch by another living being is sought out, is craved by all animals. Touch is perhaps the most talked about of all the senses, as in touch-tone telephone, touchstone, touched in the head, do not touch, touche. With the multitude of advances in medical technology, these remain the nurse's most important tools. They function both as a diagnostic instrument and a powerful medicine. Say, a fold of skin that does not come back after being gently pinched may mean that the patient is dehydrated. Pale, cold, clammy skin could be the cause of peripheral vasoconstriction that accompanies shock. An area that is reddened like sunburn, but remains cool to the touch, may indicate lack of circulation, and alerts the nurse that her patient must be headed towards pressure sores. Touchstone. Beyond the use of touch in patient's medical assessment, there is the use of touch to console and to reassure, to calm and to soothe, to let the patient know that they are valued as a human being. In my training, we were taught the importance of touch. We were taught to use it to assess and to evaluate. We were also taught the nurturing values of touch. I assumed that patients welcomed, even expected this touch. That they would just sit in their rooms, waiting for the healing warmth of the student nurse's hand. It did not take me long to determine, though, that this is not always the case. That I had to become a barometer for reading the signals of my patients. It is crucial for me to know when a patient does not wish to be touched. I could read it in the way they shrink back, or in the way their body stiffens under my hand. Sometimes, the signs are there before I even put my hand on them. A woman with her purse underneath the blankets with her. A man with the sheets tucked up under his chin, or who insists that the curtain remains drawn around his bed. In whatever way they choose. They pull away. And this is our signal to do the same. To touch someone who does not wish to be touched is to force them to feel, to connect. At a time when they don't want to feel this connection, to force them to feel care and concern, at a time when they're feeling unloved and unlovable. These are the patients, the people, who so clearly need to be touched, yet do not touch. There are times when I can tell a patient needs to make a connection with another being. They need it. They just don't know how to ask for it. They're embarrassed by this feeling. They think it makes them seem weak, childish. With these patients, I find some way to touch them and pass it off as a medical assessment. Say, I take a pulse and hold a hand a little longer than necessary, or I touch a forehead or squeeze a foot ostentatiously to check circulation and measure muscle tone. Maybe they know what I'm up to, but no one has ever questioned or complained about it. Usually they relax. Their breathing becomes more regular, and sometimes they close their eyes and just drift off into sleep. It is satisfying for me to know to give the patients the reassurance they need, while still allowing them to remain in control. And after a patient has died, I make a point of touching them in some way. I hold a hand or pat a cheek. I tousle the hair of a young child. This does nothing for them. I know that. They are long past that moment of feeling. But the final touch helps me to say goodbye and to let go. And to move on to the next patient. And the one after that. The time moves so quickly. The patients come and go. 1 billion skin cells are discarded daily. Skin that felt a mother's hand, a lover's kiss, a child's tickle, is literally here today and gone tomorrow. Touch and go.